Good evening. It is I, Ron Carr. It is my pleasure to be with you in this evening. We are running into very interesting times. People are getting restless. They wish to be out of their homes. The weather is too nice. It is beautiful. Of course, you can do anything outside your own home that you would wish, because then you are still social distancing as you have been requested to do. But soon you will want to go out and do things with others. I'm sure for this coming holiday, that which is referred to as Mother's Day, many of you would like to be visiting family members and other family members so that you can see one another in person. But I am moving. It is an interesting thing to see. So I have lost my train of thought, but it is nice for you to visit with your family members, and perhaps you can do it over the telephone or in other ways that will allow you to wish your mother a good, happy holiday and to tell her that you love her, as well as to hopefully get in touch with your own children if you have them, so that they can wish you a happy Mother's Day, and that there is just the exchange of love that is the hallmark of this particular holiday. We also have coming up in the next month the Father's Day, but somehow that is not as much equated with love as Mother's Day. Fathers have a different vibration about them. They are, perhaps they are just as loving as mothers, but they are not always as demonstrative as mothers. Of course, not everyone has the perfect mother who always shows love and understanding, but these are as it is. No one is perfect in this life, in their life on the earth. They may strive to be, and everyone strives to be as good as they could possibly be. And it is something to always remember in your life, not just when you are thinking of your mother or your father, but your friends, and of course yourself. You know when you do something wrong or you inadvertently hurt someone's feelings, that you had not the intention to do that, but that they heard something that you did not intend to convey. You are thinking of yourself, and you can forgive yourself for those kinds of mistakes that you make. You can simply say, I did not mean it that way. I am sorry. And you know in yourself that you never intended to give offense. But sometimes people take offense anyway. And sometimes you also hear others in ways that they did not intend. For most people have only one thought in mind when they are speaking. They are thinking of their good, what is good for them. They do not mean to hurt you or to offend you. They are simply thinking about what they want. And it is important to recognize that people's intentions are almost always that of goodness. And if you remember that, it makes it possible for you to forgive others when they offend you. And it is very important to forgive others, because to carry around a grudge or an unhappiness is to burden yourself with that unhappiness in every day. To think about what they have done wrong or what they said and how it hurt you only hurts you again. And each time your mind returns to that, you feel hurt, you get upset, you may feel angry. These are normal defenses to feel angry. But if you can forgive and say, it wasn't important, or I misunderstood their motives or their intentions, and you can let it go, you free yourself from continuing pain over the subject. You free yourself to move on to great happiness. Because every day, when you are free of grudges, free of hurts, free of anything that causes you pain, is a wonderful day. It's a good day. It's a day that you can enjoy. And so you seek to forgive so that you can enjoy your life. You do not have to maintain a relationship with that person or that individual if you do not wish, but if you forgive them, you free yourself to enjoy your life. And so when it comes to your mother, it is time to just give her love. Tell her that you appreciate her and that you know that she was the best mother that she could be, because that is all she could be. And that is how all people act in life. They always choose that which they feel will be their greatest good and the greatest good of in any circumstances. And so that is my lecture for today. One, to remember to love, to give love, to accept love, and the other, to forgive. Now, what questions would you like to have answered in this evening? Someone must be first.
Talking, so I guess I'll say something.
Yes, of course, that is Donna.
Yes, it is. I was wondering, why are we always looking for structure when there is none? We're always looking for something to guide us, something to tell us what to do and how to do it. We look for rules, we look for regulations, and nothing seems to mean anything in the long run, so to speak, because God's not restricting us from anything. So why do we keep seeking it?
Because you want to do what is good for yourself, exactly what I was speaking about. You see, if you have some guidelines, if you know what is the best thing to do, or you have definitions that tell you this is your proper behavior in this circumstance, then you are guided and you are relieved of the decision of trying to figure it out for yourself, of what is best for me and what is best to do in the circumstances. Once upon a time, relations were extremely formalized. The relations between people were extremely formalized. They were formalized between different classes, so that you had your people who were wealthier or were considered royalty or whatever, the people in charge, and you knew how you had to behave toward them because the rules were very defined. And you had to address them in such a way, perhaps you had to curtsy, perhaps you had to bow down. Whatever it was, you knew what was expected of you and how you had to behave toward that individual. That individual had their own set of guidelines, much less restrictive than yours, but they had expected behaviors. They were expected to behave in certain ways. So why are you seeking guidelines? You are seeking guidelines because it makes it easier for you to do what is right. Now, over time, many of these guidelines and these manners, they used to be called manners. This is how you behaved. This was your mannerism. And these things dictated your activities to others. It was good manners to invite people into your home. It was good manners to offer them a beverage or a drink of some sort. It was good manners to offer food, and it was expected of you. In this day and age, many of those things that were termed manners have been done away with, for there was a very large number of children born, and they wanted to change the way things were. And so things became more relaxed. They did not demand that children address neighbors as Mrs. So-and-so and Mr. So-and-so, but they began to be able to call them by their first names, Bill and Mary. And this at one time would not have been considered respectful for children to act in this way. This was good manners to address adults in certain ways. It was not considered good manners for children to express themselves or demand too much of attention. So these children wish to change, and perhaps their parents also wish to change. Feeling the restriction of manners when they were growing up, they wanted to give their children more leeway on things that they wished to do. And so maybe they first changed it in front. Instead of addressing someone as Mr. or Mrs. Smith, now sometimes we could call them Uncle Bill and Aunt Mary. Still a term of respect, but it was not as formal. And then they just dropped that honorism of uncle or aunt that they were bestowing upon neighbors and began to call them Bill and Mary. And so regulations, restrictions, all these things relaxed. And now that gives you what you need to do to have the freedom to act however you wish to act. Why are you still seeking guidelines? Because guidelines are helpful. They help you to do what is considered to be right within your society. And so that's why people look for things like that. And then there are those, somewhat like yourself, who also like to destroy or ignore what society dictates to them, to do their own thing and to be responsible for themselves. So I believe your question was simply, why do we look for these things? And the answer is simply because they help you to be good, to do good.
Okay, I don't think a lot of them do, but okay.
I do not understand. When you say, I do not think a lot of them do, what are you expressing?
I was thinking more along the lines that regulations and they just don't make any sense to me. And Lord knows there's lots of laws that are out there on the more either. But I kept thinking, why, if we are love and we are doing that, why do we keep seeking these regulations when we don't really?
You did not ask the question in that way, or at least I did not understand it in that way. And so you were asking, why are there so many regulations? Well, you see, there are always others who, like your parents, wanted to tell you how you should behave and what you should do. Many laws, of course, were formulated as protection for others and for the rights of others. So things like you should not steal and you should not kill came along, and they were for the purpose of making people get along well in society. Now, there are always people who know how you should behave and what you should do and what you should think in order to be happy. And they are always willing to tell you these things. So since there are always hierarchies in societies, that is to say that there are people who are in positions of authority, which slowly descends down to those people who have no real authority. They are simply living their lives and they are subject to the whims of others or the work they can do. They are the lowest levels, not that there is anything wrong with being at that level, but they are the ones who have the least amount of authority over others. And perhaps they are parents which have authority over their children and they tell their children how to behave. But there is always someone who thinks they know what is the right thing and the right way to be. And so they are always willing to codify it into a series of laws and actions and directions. And they think it is for the good of society as a whole, and many of them are. Because without some rules and regulations, there would be chaos. Now, I'm sure no one in this meeting today was around at the time when automobiles were first being used, but there were no rules. There were no traffic lights. There were no stop signs. There weren't a lot of roads, but there were certainly some. They had plenty of roads. They just weren't paved. And the cars just drove where they wanted to drive. Of course, since there were roads, they stayed on the roads rather than driving across other people's property. But there were many accidents because who had the right of way on a narrow road? Who should go first when you came to an intersection at right angles? And so there were many accidents. And eventually they had to make rules which say that you would drive on the right side of the road, that the person, when you came to an intersection that was on your right, was the one who had the right of way. And so rules have been created to eliminate chaos from the driving situation. And they are helpful in many cases. And in other cases, well, they can become restrictive. And it all depends upon what kind of society you have, which determines who will make the rules. And, but just think a little bit. You are always finding people who are more than willing to tell you how to act and how to behave. And so rules and laws manifest. Are there other questions?
I'll jump in since no one's saying anything.
Yes,
on that note, Ronghar, I think the biggest problem with humanity is they're always looking outside themselves for the rule makers. In other words, the saviors or the authoritarians or whoever it may be. And we have to find that within ourselves to guide and direct ourselves through our inner being or higher self, whatever name you want to give it, our God-given intuition. And so, and I realize that the savior figure is very strong in culture, handed down from many sacred texts, which the Bible is not the first to talk about this. Obviously, the Sumerian tablets, there are far older things than that, and they all mirror just to some extent the same messaging and I believe in a sense, giving up our sovereignty within ourselves. And I think now, particularly in this period, we can't look outside ourselves. Everyone's like, we're locked down, and when is the Messiah coming? Or when is the galactic fleet going to kick the Illuminati's ass? Or whatever labels you want to give. It's irrelevant. It's all the same thing in a way. The bad people, we want them to be dealt with, and we want humanity to grow and flourish and to reach the highest potential within ourselves as a collective body. So that's the other thing that I have a problem with. It's not so much the rules and regulations, because we do need some guidance of some form for an organized and coherent society. But everyone keeps looking outside of themselves, and we as humanity collectively have to unify. And I'm waiting for that one to happen. And that's it.
Well, yes, you are correct. People frequently look outside of themselves for the guidance that they want or need or desire in helping them make good and right decisions. Many people don't even bother looking outside themselves. They have emotional reactions to things. And when their emotions get triggered, and remember, the emotions are always triggered by your thoughts. You always have a thought before you feel something, before you have an emotion. And that thought may simply be, this is wonderful. I love this person. This person is great. I think they're terrific, which is what generates love. Or this person is an idiot, and therefore I'm not going to listen to anything he says. This person behaved badly. What they did was injurious to me, so therefore I get angry. This is the way that people react emotionally without using thought. It would be nice if those thoughts which come through from your subconscious mind and in your head by the judgments that you make would all be rational immediately in such a way that you would only see the good in things. However, that is not the way it works, because people have not been trained to do that, have not cultivated that within themselves. Now, when I say people have not been trained, I do not wish to brand all people in the same way. For many people are very thoughtful and think about these things, as perhaps you have done from your articulate question that you asked me and the way it was phrased. You have thought about this. Now you are looking for unity. Each one of you is an individual. And you have all been given the gift of that individuality in your creation, which means that not all of you are going to think alike, and you're not going to want the same things, have the same goals and the same desires. So when you are seeking unity, you must, I think, define it a little bit better than what you are looking for. Rather than being united, which could be a disaffection for some people, because they may not like the way the whole or the larger group is deciding how everyone should act. But what you perhaps want is that people learn to live in peace and harmony, respecting the wants and the desires of other people, allowing them as much space as possible for them to create for themselves that which they wish. And of course, you want everyone to be ethical and moral in the ways that they act, so that they are aware of how they are affecting others. Because it is important to realize that your rights end where they begin to intrude upon the rights of others, and others' rights intrude upon yours. That is where their rights end. They should not do that. So it takes some global thinking and harmonious thinking and deliberate attempts to create peace and harmony among others, which people often do not cultivate within themselves or within their societies, for they have the judgments that they make. This is what is right. You can see that in your religions, and all your religions basically believe in the same things, and the right actions are generally considered right actions in all religions. And bad actions, wrong actions, are generally considered wrong actions in all religions, as laws are somewhat harmonious, since they generally try to bring about the greatest good for all. But the religions often seem to fight among themselves. Well, my idea of God is this, but no, my idea is that. This is the way it really is. Minor differences of opinion, rather than realizing that the one God, the creator of everything that is not so petty, so to speak, as to require you to worship him in a particular way or think of him in a particular way. But these are the ideas of men which are limited in their thought and their ideas, and merely do the best that they can. And so unity would be nice. Is that to say that conformity is the same as unity? I am not certain that you would want conformity, if that is what is implied by unity. But a desire of everyone to create peace and harmony, I would heartily approve of that desire within yourself. And of course, the place to start is with yourself. Are there other questions?
Okay, I'm back since nobody's talking. I had a question about when we make spiritual contact with alien beings, are we really making contact with a physical entity that God's created, or are we making contact with spirits that are presenting themselves as aliens?
That is an interesting question. No one has ever asked me of that one. Of course, there are more than one species of being in all the universes that are. There are so many that exist. There is life in many different forms and in many different ways. So when someone is proclaiming that they have made contact with an alien race or of the spirit of perhaps an alien, who is to say? Everything in the universe is connected to everything else simply because everything is found within the being of God. God has created everything, brought it into form from the substance of his own being. That is all there was him when this started out, and he manifested this creation. So everything is part of God, and in this way, we are all connected to one another. So when someone says they have made contact with the spirit of an alien being, perhaps they have, because there is connection to everything in this universe, which can be felt or intuited within your own being. So there is no way for you to judge what someone says when they say, this is what the spirit of an alien being has said. Like all spirits, if the communication is beneficial to yourself, coming from a spirit you do not know what kind of spirit someone is communicating with, all you can judge is the communication itself for yourself. Is this helpful for yourself? Does it help you to live a better life? Is it inspiring to you? And again, does it help you to live a better life? Either by trying to follow that thought with your actions or in your ideas. Does it improve your disposition, the way you think and act, so that you are happier in life? If this is what it brings about, it does not matter whether that spirit came from an alien race or it came from somewhere in the human race, in this particular planet, those who have incarnated on this planet of Earth. Does it matter if it comes from an angel? What was communicated was of use to you and help you to make a better life. If you wish to understand and believe that it came from an alien race who was somehow elevated above all other races for whatever reason and has better thinking and better ideas, and you can connect with that and understand that and utilize that to make your life better, all is well. Then it is good for you to listen to that spirit. If it does not help you, if it does not help you to live a happier life, a better life, then perhaps it is best discarded. Because why would you want to embrace the words of another who give you bad advice? That seems to be the theme for the evening. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, because I was listening to you, and it was like you were saying that we're connecting maybe with the spirit of an alien, which I can understand that. I was wondering, this is going to sound kind of silly, but we're physical and they're physical, or they were physical at one point. But if they're in a physical form, are they in mental connection with a physical entity, or are we making contact with a spirit who's passed on.
Okay, I don't see an importance in that. At the moment you are talking to me, and I am not the medium. I speak through the medium, and I am in spirit. I am not in spirit. I was incarnate on this planet and had many lifetimes here. I happen to be in spirit and am serving as a guide to those who seek information and knowledge through this source known as Norma, the medium. And I speak through her. Now, your question seems to have subtly changed into if we are making telecommunications with alien beings. And once again, because everything is connected in the universe in some way, shape, or form through the energy, through the being of God, because we are all made up of this, it is possible for people's thoughts, we are saying just on this planet, for people's thoughts to be heard and known by people who are at quite a distance away. And there are people who can speak to animals. They can feel the thoughts and visions, they can get the pictures, and they can communicate with animals. So what is the difference between communicating with animals, communicating with people who are at a remote distance from yourself, or communicating from someone who is on another planet? There is no difference in the communication process. Everything is mental. Everything is connected on the mental plane. Since everything is connected on the mental plane, you can make contact with true races that live on other planets. You can make contact with animals. You can make contact with other people that are on this planet at this time, simply because you desire to be in contact. And there are many people who, without realizing it, are very attuned to the thought vibrations of others. And they may not realize that their thoughts sometimes are not their own, but they are picking up, so to speak, the vibrations of other people who are around them, or that they are in tune with, who may be at a distance. So these questions, although they are interesting as such, you must realize some of what you are asking about is not exceptional. It is the way it is, and it has the potential to be. The fact that you see these things demonstrated on the earth plane, and you see them in the form of messages that are given in message circles, or messages from spirit, messages from other people, even not given out in a ceremony as a message, but just they're talking to you. And suddenly they are answering the question you have been asking. All of you on the earth plane have experienced this phenomena. And when you seek the help of spirit, when you seek the help of God, this is frequently what happens to you. You suddenly hear what you need to hear coming from somewhere else, over the radio, the person you happen to be talking to, strangers, friends, it does not matter. The subject of the conversation comes up and communication is completed. So are there other questions?
Thank you.
Runkar, I have a question. This is Tanya. That was beautiful. Thank you. That just opens up a whole thought process for me. Can God or the universe know our thoughts without us stating them? When it comes to, it's almost like, is my mind being read? Do I have to tell them I'm struggling, or God, I'm struggling? I always had this feeling well, God must know what I need. God must know I'm not feeling well. God must know I need help with something to manifest something. At what point, and this is on the tail of Bob's lesson the other night, at what point do you have to speak it out loud or think it with emotion? Or uh, it's hard for me to differentiate, the two. Does
Yes,
that make sense?
yes, it's an excellent question. Do you want to, does God need to hear you petition for that?
Correct.
And of course, God does not. God is aware of God is part of you. He's not separate from yourself. He is part of you. God is present within you. God knows. God is present within everyone. That aspect of God, which is fully complete and is known as Tanya, and is also known as Norma, and is also known as Bob, and is also known as Donna, and is also known as Agnes, and also known as Isabel or Elizabeth. All those names, that is all part of God. They are all part of God. And so, just as you know how you are feeling, since you're part of God, God knows because he is part of you. And God does not interfere. He has given you freedom of choice. He has given you free will. So if you want something to happen, you want to make a decision, if you are seeking guidance, it is always a good idea to clarify that as much for yourself as for someone else. Not that you have to ask God for it, but you need to clarify it for yourself. What is it you are seeking to know? Why do you need to know it? What kind of solution would you like? You see, particularly on the subconscious level, which communicates to your higher self, which is always in spirit to some degree or another, there is always a connection there. These thoughts and your ideas, when they are communicated clearly within your own mind to yourself and your subconscious mind, that thought in your subconscious mind goes out into the universe. And your desire, you mentioned emotion. When you strongly feel you need something or you want something, this adds energy to the vibration. And those thoughts go out. You see, there is an author quite a long time ago which defined God as a thinking stuff, meaning there was an intelligent something that he did not define, but was present throughout the universe and permeated everything within it, so that it was part of the universe. And he just called it a thinking stuff. And when you think, you are thinking to that thinking stuff. It is part of you because it permeates you, but you are creating a thought which is joining with this substance which is everywhere throughout the universe and is part of everything. And you are clearly stating what it is you wish to manifest in your life. This is like holding clay within your hands. You know that everything is first created on the mental plane. Nothing could come into existence without the thought. So that there had to be the thought of the bicycle. Some way we can use these wheels to get us somewhere, to put two wheels in the front and the back and balance in the middle and have a pedal which turn the wheels. That's got to be much better than walking. I need to think of that. And what if I put a motor on it and I could go faster? Or what if I enclosed it so I would have this wonderful space in which I could ride? It's better than a horse, but it's a thought of somebody's mind, and they tried to figure it out. Like Orville and Wilbur Wright had this idea that they could make a machine that could fly if it had wings big enough, if it had certain things. And so in their mind, they had the thought, and then they took the actions to try and manifest it. And so when you want to create something, you first have to know what it is you want to create. You kind of have to know it in detail. For you can't say, oh, I want something that'll help me fly. I mean, there have been many people who have thought about making wings that people could attach to themselves and help them to fly. You see diagrams of them which go back centuries. These were thoughts people had. How can I fly like a bird? But it was what was desired. How can I reach a higher level? And somebody thought of the ladder. So it is all found in thought. Since the creative stuff of the universe, which is God, is first mental, your thought affects that creative stuff. And if your thought is strong and you are determined and you are consistent to make that thought known, that creative stuff, which is in the universe and which I call God, that creative stuff will begin to manifest and attract to yourself that which you wish. And that's what is most important, that your mind, everything begins on the mental plane. And know that you and God are one on the mental plane. Does that help you at all?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there other questions?
Yes, I have a question for you, Monica.
Yes.
With the current situation with the coronavirus, and I know with me and things in my personal life that I am coming to a crossroads in my life. And is this going to have a major effect on not only my personal life, but like other people's as well?
Well, the coronavirus is having an effect on many people's lives because when it has come to someone has acquired the virus somehow through breathing in air that someone else who had the virus had exhaled. Perhaps they got the virus somehow, that it affected their health, and their family members can be upset over the sickness of others. And so they do what they do. They just they worry, or they think about what could possibly happen. So of course this coronavirus could have an effect upon yourself and upon others. Perhaps you know someone who's become ill, and then it would become very personal to yourself. So I'm not quite sure what your question is, because the way you phrased the question, you were asking about, would it have an effect upon you? And it will. Will it have an effect upon your thought of coming to this crossroads? Well, that I cannot tell, because I am not certain which type of crossroads you are speaking about and how it is likely to affect you.
Right.
It can be said, that every moment in your life is a crossroads.
True.
So would you like to elucidate a little bit more?
Well, I'm of an age where I will be retiring soon, and I was just wondering how this is going to be with that. I mean, I'm thinking about moving out of state and stuff like that. So it's going to be kind of difficult with this virus being active.
I do not think it will be any more difficult to move out of state because the virus is active than it is right now. Because there are many diseases that affect the human body, and which, if you are not thinking clearly, you do not have not lived a lifestyle that there has a reduction in stress, so that you are at the healthiest level that you can be, that you've eaten properly. I mean, these things happen with the physical body, that you have to deal with your physical body and treat it as well as you can to keep it healthy. And that is keeping an optimistic outlook in life and being cheerful. These things are all important, as well as feeling love and loving people. There are so many aspects to make people well and healthy. And so those things still apply. When you want to move to a different location, while travel may be a bit constricted at this point in time because of states being closed, the freeways are not exactly closed. And the highways are open, and you have gas stations so you can buy gas, and so you can go visit any place that you think you might like to live, to investigate it and make that decision. It has nothing to do with the virus, because many of the other states are, other than this one that you are in, are relaxing restrictions, and so people will be moving about more and more and going back to a normal life fairly soon. So it's not going, if you are going to be retiring soon and you want to investigate possibilities in your life, well, you can take little trips. You can visit via phone and information services over the internet to look at towns in different places, see what the housing costs are, what they have to offer, whether you think you would like there. All these things can be done at this current time. There is no restriction due to the virus, and the virus will not restrict you much longer, because everyone has decided they wish to be free of restrictions, and pretty soon that is what will happen. So the virus will not be a reflection on your decision to retire. If everything is in place for you to retire successfully, you will be able to do so.
Great.
You're welcome. Are there other questions?
Yeah, hi, this is Kathy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you, Kathy.
Okay. Couple of things that you were talking about, like manifesting and the details of manifestation. It made me think to something that I hear a lot when people say, oh, you can do anything if you just work at it hard enough, or if you work at it hard enough and believe in yourself, and all these things that you kind of also stated. But what about someone that's just doesn't have the physical or even the mental capabilities to do, like, you know, I think of like extreme sports, or, you know, financial moguls that are really, really at the top of their game, and not, you know, not just good, but, you know, what's the difference between those people and, say, someone with, you know, Down syndrome is not going to probably run a, you know, a multi-billion-dollar company, or maybe not even compete in normal Olympics, you know. So how does that fit into this jigsaw puzzle?
Well, there are, of course, certain limitations that go with the body that you have for this incarnation. Some people are blind. Some people are deaf. The deaf probably will not be made to hear, but many of them, surprise, that can be done for many people. They have come up with a device that connects directly into the brain or to the hearing nerves. And rather than just a hearing aid which amplifies sounds, this is a different thing that processes sounds. And so now they can hear. Of course, there is a learning process when you are first introduced to sound, when you have not been listening to it since you were a baby. And so you have to learn what sounds mean and begin to interpret them. Same thing with seeing. If you have been blind and you suddenly see, you will not see a face. You will simply see a bunch of energy that is coming at you, and you won't know what to make of it until you have studied it for a while. And yes, there are people who are limited in their mental capacities, but these people also would have no desire to try to be the CEO of a huge corporation. They think simply. And so their desires would be more in line with their capabilities. There are natural restrictions that come with the bodies, and these things must be accepted. It is similar to the desire to fly like a bird. You cannot fly like a bird, but you can fly, because you can either get yourself a drone that is big enough to lift you up, or you can buy an airplane or rent an airplane or learn how to fly. You cannot do it like a bird. Yes, there are natural restrictions which prohibit or stop certain actions and certain achievements. But you can always train yourself to be as good as that you can be. When I was talking about restrictions, I was thinking, you know, someone who is blind would not desire to be a painter because he cannot see any paintings. He's never seen one, he doesn't know what it is, and he can't possibly express something through his painting. But he can be creative in music without being able to see a note. Simply by being given the instrument and using his ears, he will figure it out and learn how to play whatever the instrument is. So blind people play all different types of instruments and make beautiful music. And deaf people can paint wonderful pictures. And so you would need to look at your talents. And when they say anyone can create anything that he wants to create, we do have to accept the fact that there are limitations, that you may not be able to do things as well as others, but you can learn to do things with what you have. And you will probably desire only to do things that you are capable of doing to some degree, as I said. The blind person would not wish to try and paint. It would not be in his consciousness to do so.
Okay, thank you. That clears that up a little bit.
Good enough?
Another question on a different topic, or a little different topic?
You may change the topic.
Okay, well, my father passed about 2 years ago, and he was at least for many years prior to his passing, I know he was a devout atheist. So my question is,
Your voice is dropping in and out, so I am having a great difficulty understanding the words that you are saying.
Try again.
Can you try again? Kathy? I'm sorry, I do not hear you at all right now.
intelligence or higher power or energy or anything at all,
You came in there for just a moment talking about a higher power or energy or anything at all, but then your voice disappeared again.
No, that's another question.
So does anyone else have a question, since we can't seem to hear Kathy?
Hi, Ron Carr. This is Marguerite.
Marguerite?
I heard you mention that you had a lot of incarnations prior to being what you are now. And I just was curious if you could maybe tell us about one of them and maybe like a major struggle that you had in one of them. Yeah, I've just never thought of you in that form. And I just think it would be interesting because your advice always feels very divine. And it would be interesting to hear about like a very human struggle that you might have had.
Thank you for asking. This is a question that has not, I think, may have been asked of me once, one particular time. One moment, let me try to choose a lifetime that would fulfill your request. One moment.
Thank you.
I was once a royalty, I was a lady in waiting to a royal person. And so it was my job to attend to this woman in any way that she demanded. So that I was one of several, not just, I was not the only one, but there were several of us. And it was our job to provide her company, to provide her with company, conversation. And of course, seeing as how she was a special person, her opinions and her ideas were honored greatly and respected greatly, however erroneous they may have been. And it was often difficult because she had, of course, been very pampered from the time she was a child. And so she had demands and thought things which were not reasonable. I will put it that way. She had demands and thoughts that were unreasonable to expect anyone to do. And so she was not very kind to us ladies who had to be in waiting, so to speak, to bring her food, to prepare her dresses, to do things with her. And as a result, and that incarnation, it frequently generated resentment within myself that I was asked to do these things and these. So many of these things were unreasonable and they were difficult, and she had no patience for us to do these things. And it was also, she often asked for things that were not within her power to demand. She was not the king, and she was not the queen. But she thought she could have anything that she wanted, and that we had to act in every way possible. And it was a very, very difficult incarnation. Even though we were privileged, we were warmer than most people, even though we had nice clothing, which was in better condition than most people, we were still forced into basically the role of a slave who had everything but was not allowed to do anything except wait on the person, the personage of this royal person. And so it required a great deal of patience and perseverance to be steady in the spot. And I was accused unjustly of doing something that she did not like. And as a result, I was dismissed from my position and I was punished with prison. And this was difficult for me in that lifetime. Now I can look at this and of course it is not an issue in this lifetime, nor is it in your lifetime, this particular life for you, because these types of people are not too plentiful within society, not having enough royalty that has that position. Your royalties today have are more figureheads, and while they are given many privileges, they do not have that type of authority that she had over us. And as a result, it was difficult that way for me. As I said, my feeling at the time was that I was essentially a slave. I had none of my emotions or my concerns were of concern to anyone else. I just had to do what needed to be done. There was very little difference between what my life was like and that of a slave. And perhaps I had less, I had less liberties than the lowest serf had in the kingdom, because they at least had the liberty to do what they wanted on a daily basis. I was always in waiting. So it was a bit difficult that lifetime. And you see, you may think of this as being trivial. And even as I look back on that lifetime and seeing that in perspective from a different time, it was simply a lesson in patience and obedience, and to also being able to control myself. So it was self-control and obedience and patience.
I see. Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
a good thing to learn.
Yeah, I don't think it's trivial at all. That sounds bad. Thank you.
You are most welcome. Are there other questions?
I was just wondering did you die in prison or did they let you out?
No, I remained in prison until I died.
Wow. Were you like hateful and resentful, or were you just accepting?
I'm trying to, needless to say, I do not recall all the emotions that I experienced at that time. I did get a little bit carried away by tuning into that lifetime. When it came to prison, I believe I just experienced despair, because there was nothing that I could do. I was not terribly mistreated in prison, but it was cold and it was damp and there wasn't too much to eat, and I was unclean and dirty, and there was nothing I could do. So there was a great deal of despair and depression.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. But having gone through it once, I do not have to go through it again. Are there other questions?
Yeah, hi, Ronka. This is Agnes. I think a lot about guardian angels and just wonder, like when you were in the prison, did you have any knowledge, like the guardian angels were with you at the time?
One moment. I don't think I had much of a belief in God at the time. I do not know what it was, but there was certainly, when I had gone to prison, there was no hope for anything else in life, and I was just what I was. I cannot say that I had the comforting thought that there were angels watching over me, or that you see, I cannot think and to recall all that I might have thought or felt. I can see that and know that there was despair and depression. So there were no comforting thoughts that I can detect as I look into that situation. And I'm sure you can understand, There is no need for me to go back to that level of being. I learned what I had to learn, and I exercised what self-discipline and control that were necessary up to a point. There was injustice, excuse me, and but the injustice did not extend to me being tortured or put to death. So there was optimism. I mean, there were good things about that.
My other question is, God, your guardian angels are with you all the time, or maybe not. I'm not sure how that works. Is it because they know what's going to happen before it happens, regardless of, you know, sometimes you change your mind and do something at the last minute or the last second. Are they with you all the time, close that they're with you when a terrible accident happens? Or
Okay, I believe I understand your question. Your angels and your guides are all the time. There is, you see, there is no time in spirit, and that is what is hard to convey, that there is no time. And so as you go through life, you are sending out vibrations. Obviously, you are affecting the world around yourself. Your angels, your guides, are aware of how you are acting and how you are being. So in that sense, they are with you all the time. Are they interfering in your life? No. They are there to be of service should you call upon them. If you do not call upon them, maybe they would try to offer service, thoughts, inspiration in some way that would come to you from others. But that is about all that they can do for you unless you ask specifically for help. And then you can, such as help or guidance in making a decision. And then when you ask them for that, as I have said, and others have told you, I am sure, that you can either listen for the reply and accept what you hear in your head as being the advice that is being given. You can block the reply so that you do not hear it. You can also listen and have your answer come from other people that you happen to be in conversation with. And as I have indicated, perhaps even over the radio or the television or in the book you are reading, you may come upon a line that, or an expression which suddenly gives you the inspiration, the knowledge, and the wisdom that you need. You know, there are very many people who consult the Bible for these things. And the way they do it usually is not, well, they can just open the Bible and begin reading. And reading in the story, and then they may come to the inspiration that they need from that story in the Bible that they happen to be reading about. It may answer the question. So people find the answers. It says, there was something, excuse me, Bob,
Yes,
on my screen.
what?
I have a sign saying your speaker is not working. Can people hear me?
We can hear you now, but you were breaking up.
Oh, okay. There was a sign came onto the screen. Please check your connection. So, at any rate, when you ask your spirits and you ask your guides and you ask for inspiration and enlightenment, it comes to you. You have to merely be open to hearing it and seeing it. Now, sometimes you will finally figure it out for yourself. That may be because you also got inspired to think. Many times you will wake up in the morning after a night's rest and suddenly have the knowledge that you need. Come to know yourself better. But sometimes you have to do it through a process where you want to specify what it is you are looking to know, what help and guidance, and possibly even possible answers that you think could possibly come to you, what you expect your angel to say. And as you do these things, very often you begin to know precisely what it is you need to know. So when you are searching for answers, then you will find answers. And that is all that I can say about your guardian angels. Yes, they are with you at all times, because spirit is almost always part of yourself. It is part of yourself. And once again, you have to come back to that knowledge and understanding that God is all prevalent everywhere, and that you are a manifestation of God. And so is everyone else, even though you would think that if you were God, you would act in perfect ways. But he has given you free choice to be as you wish to be. And for some people, that choice is not nice or pleasant. They're not what you would consider to be good choices. Are there other questions?
Well, this is a question, something on a similar topic, and I don't know if I can word it properly. But I'm of the belief and somewhat of the knowledge that what I am is spirit. So, in a sense, I am united with God as God, and all that I am is a manifestation of what God is. So, what I'm thinking is that the real me is that part that is the eternal part. So I call that the life of God that I am. However, I also think that my body is also that presence of God. However, my body is not the eternal part. So I guess the question is there somewhat of a separation there? I mean, I like to think of the all of me, including my mind, body, and being, as the manifestation of the divine. But in reality, is it only my eternal self that's the manifestation of the divine?
Well, thank you for that question. All of you is the manifestation of the divine. There is nothing in this creation that is not made up of the stuff of God, simply because when God manifested this creation as it is, there was nothing that he could bring it forth from but himself. So everything is made up of the stuff of God. Now, you are spirit in a body. That's why when the body crumbles and dies, you still live on in spirit. And for the person, I believe it might have been Marguerite, who said that I answer such things in a spiritual way. Well, remember that I am not in the physical body. So I do not see things the way you see things. I am not limited by a physical body. Either the things that the body feels or the things that the body is subjected to. I am free of those things in my normal and natural state, which is spirit. At this point in time, you have come into the creation. And your spirit, that part that is you, that was once with me in spirit, so to speak, you came into the physical body. And there was one reason why you came into the physical body. Well, there may have been many reasons, but one of the reasons is because in the physical world, you can be your most divine self. You are the creator of the world that you experience in every way. You make all your own decisions, which shape the world that you experience. You make your own judgments, which also shape the world that you experience. And as a result, you are creating every moment of every time. Not every time, just every moment and throughout all time. You are making and creating the world that you are living in. And so if you do not wish to experience what you are experiencing, you can decide to change that and take actions which take an action which would create change in your life. You can either change the way you react to things, you can change the way you think by coming up with new thoughts and new ideas. So you can change the world that you live in. And every part of yourself is a part of God, both of the physical parts of yourself as well as the spiritual parts of yourself, because that's all there was when God created the universe. Everything. The chair you are sitting in, if you are sitting in a chair, the computer in front of you is all God stuff. It's all physical matter, which has come forth from energy. The energy of God, the mind of God. This is all the vibration of God. And it solidifies down into the physicality of atoms and matter. And you have the mental ability and the will to shape physical matter and to utilize it to create that which you wish to create and to make your life the way you want it to be. It's most important to recognize that you are a creator and you have that power, even though you may not feel as if you have the power. But there are so many things you can create and you can demonstrate to yourself exactly that you are a creator. Try lighting a piece of paper with a match. Put a flaming match, strike it up, and light the piece of paper. You transform it to ash and uselessness in no time flat. But it gave you a little bit of energy over that amount of time. And if you were seeking to have energy by burning paper, you could warm yourself up at least for a little while. So all these things may seem silly to you, but if you look at them as the creative aspects of yourself, this is the way that you create through every decision that you make. And yes, in a sense, you are the God in your world. Totally and completely, you are God, creating your world the way you want it to be, even though you don't think it is the way you want it to be. I do not know if that answered your question, but
Yes, well, that's pretty much right.
you were saying,
Yes.
I am in total agreement with your thought.
Well, I did hear a lecture where there was a difference of opinion in that. I just wanted clarification. So that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any more questions?
It's about time.
I was going to say, how are we doing on time?
It's almost 9 o'clock.
Then it is just about time for me to say goodnight. Thank you all who have come and to be with me in this evening. I give you thanks for your presence and giving me this opportunity to speak with you, and I hope I have been helpful, for that is what I desire most to do when I am present. So I give you all my blessings. Good night.